Hi, and a warm welcome to everyone. Welcome back to 1% Better, a channel where we share knowledge for holistic self-development through meaningful books. Have you ever felt this way? On the outside, life still seems normal. You still go to work, reply to messages, and smile when you need to. No one notices anything wrong. But deep inside, you feel strangely drained. The things that once brought you joy now feel oddly bland. A success you worked so hard for finally arrives. You should feel happy, proud, even ready to celebrate. But instead you feel calm, almost empty. The pleasures you once enjoyed, hanging out with friends, watching movies, scrolling through videos, checking in at cafes, now feel optional. Whether they happen or not doesn't seem to matter. Some evenings you pick up your phone, then put it down again. You scroll for a few minutes and feel bored. You open a movie, watch for 15 minutes, then turn it off. A quiet sense of emptiness rises inside you. You are not exactly suffering. It is just hard to feel happy. Sometimes you ask yourself, am I becoming emotionally numb? Am I too ambitious so nothing can satisfy me anymore? Or is this simply what happens when we grow up, joy slowly disappears? If you have ever felt this way, you may be experiencing a state known as anhedonia, the reduced ability to feel pleasure. When people hear the word pleasure, they often think of instant gratification, the kind of joy that pulls us in, then leaves us feeling hollow afterward. Because of that, many people assume that having less pleasure might actually be a good thing. But the problem is not pleasure itself. The real problem is how we manage, balance, and restore our ability to feel joy. Because when we stay too long in a state of pleasure deficiency, we gradually lose our motivation to live. Our ability to feel moved by life begins to fade. And if left unnoticed, this state can develop into severe depression or anxiety disorders. British psychologist Tanith Carey once pointed out that anhedonia is far more common than we might think. At the beginning of the 21st century, around 12% of adults in the United States were affected by this condition. But among young people today, that number has risen to about 26 to 30%. This was what inspired her to write the popular psychology book, roughly translated as Feeling Blah: Why Life Has Lost Its Joy and How to Get It Back. Today, the book has been translated into more than 35 languages and published in many countries. I hope that the ideas shared in this video can become a small candle, helping you name that vague feeling inside, understand what is truly happening in your brain and emotions, and gradually find your way out of anhedonia, so that once again you can feel touched by life and live with more joy, peace, and inner balance. Now let's begin. Why are we becoming more easily bored and emotionally drained? The first reason is this. The chemical messengers in your body have fallen out of balance. Chemical messengers are compounds produced by the body that transmit signals between cells. They help regulate physiological processes, behavior, emotions, movement, and the way we respond to the environment. Among them, four chemicals directly influence our experience of joy: dopamine, serotonin, cortisol, and oxytocin. When they work in harmony, we feel stable, motivated, and able to enjoy life. But when this balance is disrupted, our emotions change in very noticeable ways. 1. Dopamine, when instant rewards make life feel bland. First, let's talk about dopamine. This is the neurotransmitter most easily overloaded in modern life. Dopamine is often called the happiness hormone, but more accurately, it is the chemical of motivation. It is like fuel that pushes us to take action in pursuit of reward. Throughout human evolution, our brains were programmed according to a model of high effort, low reward. You had to hunt, gather, and struggle throughout the day before a meal at night could bring you a brief sense of pleasure. After dopamine reached its peak, it quickly dropped, pushing you to keep moving toward the next goal. This mechanism helped humans evolve, always desiring, always searching, always moving forward. But modern society has reversed this pattern into low effort, high reward. With just one tap, we can have food delivered to our door, products shipped to our home, Social media filled with likes and hearts, endless entertainment videos, and video games offering one virtual victory after another. These instant rewards continuously activate dopamine. The problem is that they come too easily, too frequently, and with too much intensity. As a result, the dopamine system becomes saturated. When dopamine is constantly pushed too high, the brain adjusts by reducing its sensitivity to pleasure. The consequence is that the same experience brings less and less excitement over time. Things that once made you happy now feel bland. You begin to need stronger, newer, and more intense stimulation just to feel normal. In essence, dopamine has not disappeared. Your ability to feel it has simply become numb. It is like listening to music at maximum volume for too long. Eventually, your ears become less sensitive to subtle melodies. When dopamine is overloaded, you are not necessarily in pain. You just begin to feel that nothing is special anymore. And this is a quiet but serious warning sign for your mental health. 2. Cortisol, when stress silences your joy. The second chemical messenger that easily falls out of balance in modern life is cortisol. If dopamine drives us to seek rewards, cortisol helps us survive danger. This is a legacy of evolution. Our ancestors were both hunters and potential prey. That is why the brain prioritizes negative information. When something good and something bad appear at the same time, our instinct clings to the bad thing first because doing so increases our chance of survival. The problem is that this mechanism was not designed for today's world. We no longer have to run from wild animals every day, but we face countless small pressures. Deadlines, bills, traffic jams, work messages after hours, and endless to-do lists. The ancient brain does not clearly distinguish between real danger and psychological pressure. A message from your boss after work saying, "Let's talk tomorrow," can make your body react as if a lion were chasing you. Your heart beats faster. Your breathing becomes shallow. Cortisol is released to prepare you to fight or run. In the past, this response saved human lives. But today, it keeps us trapped in a prolonged state of alarm. Stress and joy are like two ends of a seesaw. When cortisol rises and takes over, dopamine is suppressed. This means the more stressed and pressured you are, the less capable you become of feeling pleasure. Moreover, dopamine arrives quickly and fades quickly. Cortisol, however, spreads more slowly and stays longer. A single stressful event can keep your body tense for hours. Gradually, you do not only find it hard to feel happy, you also find it hard to relax. Many people fall into chronic stress, and over time this begins to change the structure of the brain. If cortisol dominates for too long, it can shrink the hippocampus, the area related to memory, enlarge the amygdala, the center of fear, and thin the prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for reason and decision-making. In other words, your brain becomes highly alert to stress, but less sensitive to joy. 3. Serotonin, when comparison steals your peace. The third chemical messenger is serotonin. Serotonin brings a feeling of calm satisfaction, confidence, and inner peace. It is like a natural stabilizer for your mood. When serotonin is sufficient, you feel that you are okay. When it declines, you become more restless, anxious, emotionally unstable, and especially sensitive to feelings of lack. From an evolutionary perspective, serotonin is closely linked to social status. In early tribes, being recognized and accepted by the group meant a higher chance of survival. When people hunted together, shared food, and received respect, serotonin increased, bringing a sense of belonging and enoughness. But this mechanism was designed for a small tribe of a few dozen people, not for the massive social networks we live in today. The internet and social media expose you to more people than your ancestors would have met in an entire lifetime. And because of that, you are easily thrown into a space of unlimited comparison. In the past, you compared yourself only with a few people in your tribe. Today, you compare yourself with the most beautiful, talented, wealthy, and successful people from all over the world. At first, you may scroll social media simply for entertainment. But the more you scroll, the more you see others who seem better, prettier, happier, and more successful. The feeling of, "I am not enough," quietly slips into your mind without you realizing it. Besides passive comparison, we also actively enter the race for likes, followers, and engagement numbers. These numbers give us a brief burst of serotonin, then quickly disappear, leaving behind emptiness and the fear of falling behind. The more we compare, the more lacking we feel. The more lacking we feel, the more serotonin becomes disrupted. And the more disrupted serotonin becomes, the more vulnerable we are to those comparisons. And so the feeling of peace and enoughness drifts farther away. Gradually, you no longer feel at ease even when everything in your life is still fine. Not because your life is terrible, but because your mind keeps placing you on an invisible leaderboard. Serotonin was meant to create connection and contentment. But if we do not adjust our lifestyle, it can become disrupted and turn into a source of anxiety, insecurity, and self-doubt. 4. Oxytocin, when digital connection replaces real connection. The fourth chemical messenger is oxytocin. Oxytocin is often called the cuddle hormone or the love hormone. It is released when we hug someone we love, hold a friend's hand, or simply have a warm, sincere conversation. In early human societies, oxytocin helped people trust, cooperate, and bond with one another as a tribe. That was how humans survived. But modern life is gradually wearing down this precious hormone. We spend less time in face-to-face meetings, real hugs, and deep conversations with people we care about. As a result, oxytocin has fewer chances to be activated. Instead, many people search for substitutes online. Short videos, romantic dramas, love stories, virtual dating games, and relationships that are half real, half imagined. These experiences can still stimulate the brain to release oxytocin and dopamine, but often in a shallow, fast, and depthless form. The problem is that the brain does not always clearly distinguish between what is real and what is fake. If you repeatedly associate intimacy with a screen over time, real-life relationships may begin to feel less appealing. Too much virtual stimulation also dulls the reward system. To feel loved, you need to consume more and more. And the more you consume, the farther you drift from real connection. When oxytocin becomes isolated, meaning you do not truly have a trustworthy, sincere bond with someone, loneliness begins to appear. And if loneliness lasts too long, we become less able to feel joy, trust others, or open our hearts. 5. Gut health, the forgotten source of happiness. Finally, there is one broader cause that we often overlook: our neglect of gut health. Few people know that about 95% of the body's serotonin and 50% of its dopamine are produced in the gut, often called the second brain. There, billions of beneficial bacteria do more than support digestion. They also help regulate and produce neurotransmitters, sending signals directly to the brain through the vagus nerve. In modern life, as we sink into easy stimulation, the chemical system inside us gradually falls out of balance. This imbalance can also affect the gut-brain axis, causing digestive disorders and increasing the risk of problems such as gastritis, irritable bowel syndrome, functional digestive disorders, and acid reflux. Yet we often continue to damage our gut health with diets full of enemies of the microbiome. Too much sugar, too much oil, unhealthy fats, and processed foods. Such diets disrupt the balance of gut bacteria, cause inflammation, and interfere with the production of the very chemicals that help us feel happy. In other words, every day you may be eating your own boredom and emotional numbness. So that is the first major reason why we are becoming more easily bored and emotionally drained: the imbalance of our chemical messengers. The second cause: childhood wounds that shape the brain. Next, let's move to the second cause of anhedonia, one that lies deeper. It is rooted in experiences that silently shaped our brain and nervous system from childhood. These are psychological scars that can last well into adulthood. They usually form on 3 levels. 1. Emotional wounds, becoming numb to survive. Many people learned at a young age to disconnect from their emotions as a form of self-protection. When a child is repeatedly exposed to scolding, emotional neglect, or abuse, and cannot fight back or run away, the child unconsciously escapes from their own feelings. They begin to see everything as if they were an outsider. They become numb in order to protect themselves from pain. This mechanism may have been useful in the past, but in adulthood, it can become a dangerous habit. It turns a person into a spectator of their own life, present in every moment, yet unable to fully feel anything. Even when life is abundant, they still find it difficult to touch joy. 2. Cognitive wounds, the belief that joy is unsafe. Childhood is the stage when our core beliefs about ourselves and the world begin to form. A harsh word when a child is excited, a cold reaction when they express joy, a moment of ridicule when they hope to be acknowledged. These seemingly small experiences can plant toxic seeds in the subconscious. I do not deserve happiness. Joy is dangerous. Whenever I feel happy, something bad will happen. These negative source codes quietly influence our thoughts and choices later in life. They create invisible barriers that prevent us from receiving joy naturally. 3. Biological wounds, a brain trained to stay alert. The third level is biological. This may be the layer most deeply engraved into the brain. When a child grows up in a stressful and unsafe environment, constantly criticized, scolded, punished, or forced to meet their parents' expectations, their body continuously releases cortisol. Over time, neural pathways related to vigilance and fear become strengthened. Meanwhile, the connections related to safety, relaxation, and joy are not properly nurtured. As a result, even after growing up and leaving the old environment, the brain continues to operate in a default mode of alertness. And that is also why joy can feel so difficult to access. So how can we feel joy again? So how can we adjust? How can we help ourselves not just survive, but truly feel happy, alive, and peaceful in the modern world? To bring you a more visual and profound experience, the next important part of this topic will be continued in a hand-drawn video. So I will pause this episode here so I can have more time to complete and edit part 2. I hope part 2 will help you receive these ideas in a more vivid, easy to understand, and effective way. Changing our mindset is the essential first step. But for transformation to truly take root and last, we need concrete actions. Actions that can help reprogram the structure of happiness in the brain. In part 2, we will explore tools like that together. Simple yet powerful. They will help you learn how to master your internal reward system, clear away accumulated stress, and gradually build a solid foundation for a life that feels lighter, calmer, and more joyful from within. All of this is based on how the brain works and on the amazing power of neuroplasticity. So please look forward to part 2 coming back in the next few days. Finally, thank you for listening. If you found this video helpful, please share it with someone who may need it. Don't forget to give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss our newest videos each week. Once again, thank you, and I'll see you in the next video.